There's a reason why certain individuals walk through life with a quiet but undeniable presence. People who seem to radiate something beyond explanation. These are the ones who carry within them a deep spiritual force that often goes unnoticed, until it's too late for those who dared to cross them. They're not above others, nor do LAs seek recognition, but their existence carries weight in realms both visible and unseen. This isn't about fear, it's about reverence. If you've ever dismissed or underestimated one of these souls, it's time to understand why that was not just a mistake, but a spiritual misstep. The first thing to know is that these individuals don't walk alone. There's a kind of unseen guidance surrounding them. Something that doesn't come from status, wealth, or charisma, but from alignment with a higher purpose. They seem to be shielded by something intangible, almost like a spiritual current that redirects negativity, confusion, and harm. This protection isn't theatrical. It doesn't shout. It doesn't boast. But it's real. It works in silence, in subtle redirections of energy. In the inexplicable way doors close for those who try to harm them, and open for those who treat them with sincerity. This force is not a superstition. It's an ancient law of balance, one that many overlook until consequences arrive. Their energy is transformative, not just for themselves, but for the environment around them. You've probably noticed someone who, even in the darkest of rooms, brings a subtle light. Not by speaking loudly, but simply by being. It's not magic, it's resonance. They alter the frequency of spaces, and their vibration communicates with the unseen. Whether in a family, a friendship, or a workplace, they recalibrate the energy without even trying. And when challenged, they don't retaliate with ego. They allow the higher forces to respond. That's why messing with them never ends the way one might expect. Their silence is not weakness. It's patience in motion. But beyond this unseen armor, there's something even more powerful: their inner clarity. And that brings us to the second element. These individuals have a mental sharpness that isn't necessarily intellectual in the conventional sense. You won't always find them with a bookshelf full of degrees, but you will find them seeing patterns others miss. They understand what's not being said, they read between the lines, and they anticipate things long before they happen. This isn't about IQ. It's about insight, born from observation, experience, and a depth of soul rarely cultivated in our distracted world. They often speak little but listen deeply. And when they finally offer their thoughts, it's not to impress, it's to illuminate. They know that true intelligence isn't in volume, but in impact. Their words tend to stay with you. They don't offer shallow advice, but truth woven with gentleness and strength. People find themselves coming to them not just for answers, but for peace. They are not walking encyclopedias. They are mirrors, reflecting back the clarity you already carry, but may have forgotten. To ignore their wisdom is not just to overlook a person, but to turn away from a compass life has offered you. And when someone ridicules their thoughts or mocks their insights, it isn't just offensive, it's a missed opportunity. Because they rarely argue. They withdraw. And when they leave, they take something sacred with them, the light they were willing to share. It's not that they believe they're always right. They're simply aligned with something that helps them see what others aren't yet ready to. Then comes the third truth, one that many experience but few can explain. The quiet power these people hold to affect others at a core level. Their influence isn't about domination. It's subtle, emotional, even spiritual. They shift people without coercion. Just being near them is often enough to ignite introspection, to spark internal change. You may have walked away from a conversation with one of them and felt a weight lift or a thought take root in your mind days later. That's not coincidence. That's presence. These are the people who can smile at you during your darkest hour, and suddenly you remember that you're not alone. They won't always give you solutions, but they'll give you strength. They won't fix your path, but they'll remind you it's still yours to walk. Their presence brings people back to themselves, often without either party realizing it. And this ability doesn't come from a script. It comes from having walked through fire themselves. Their empathy is earned. Their compassion is seasoned. Their impact extends beyond personal interaction. They carry vibrations that ripple into communities. Sometimes they don't even know the full extent of their influence. A kind word, a moment of listening, a silent prayer. They plant seeds in people that grow long after they've gone. They are often the reason someone doesn't give up, even if they never find out. This is why underestimating them is so dangerous. Because what they offer isn't visible, it's vibrational. And if you mock what you don't see, you may be cursing the very answer you've been seeking. Their role in the world is not to be adored, but to awaken. They're not here to gain followers, but to hold space for truth to unfold. Dismissing them is like choosing to stay asleep with the alarm ringing beside you. But when you engage with them from a place of sincerity, something opens, not just in them, but in you. Another layer that defines these individuals, and one we often overlook, is the solitude they carry. Not the kind chosen freely, but the kind that chooses them. Many of them grow up feeling like outsiders, sensing things others don't, struggling to fit into boxes too small for their spirit. Their thoughts are vast, their emotions run deep, and their sensitivity is often misunderstood as weakness. What people fail to see is that solitude has been their training ground. The quiet corners of life taught them resilience. Silence became their teacher. And instead of growing bitter, they grew wiser. Being different in a world that celebrates. Sameness is not easy. They often find themselves questioned, doubted, or ridiculed, not because they are wrong, but because they challenge the norm. They don't fit the mold. They speak with too much heart. They feel too much, and they refuse to pretend. That kind of authenticity makes people uncomfortable. It disrupts illusions. And rather than face their own reflections, many reject the mirror. That's why these individuals often walk alone, not because they want to, but because their essence is too honest for a world addicted to masks. But here's the paradox. What isolates them also strengthens them. Every moment of exclusion becomes a refining fire. Every judgment thrown their way becomes a lesson in self-trust. Over time, they learn not just to endure the solitude, but to thrive in it. They use it to connect more deeply with the unseen, with nature, with the divine. They return from their personal deserts not empty, but filled with messages, insights, and a peace that cannot be faked. So when you meet someone like this, who doesn't rush to belong, who doesn't cling to crowds, understand they've met themselves already. And that is a rare kind of power. From that deep well of experience springs something remarkable, their instinct. It's not just gut feeling. It's an inner knowing, a spiritual compass sharpened over years of walking through both light and shadow. They don't need long explanations. They sense when something's off. They know when someone isn't genuine. They may not confront you directly, but they'll know, and they'll respond. Not with drama, but with distance. It's not pettiness, it's preservation. They've learned that trusting their intuition isn't just useful, it's essential. Time and time again, their inner voice has saved them from betrayal, deception, or wasted energy. And so they listen, closely. They don't need proof to believe their soul's whispers. They move with faith in what can't be measured. And that makes them unsettling to those who rely only on logic. But that same intuition allows them to see people, not just what they do, but who they are beneath the performance. They spot intentions, they feel energy shifts, they pick up what's left unsaid. This makes them powerful healers, mentors, and quiet guides. They might not have the title or the platform, but they have the gift. In a conversation, they might say something that cracks your armor, not because they're trying to, but because they see what you're hiding. And if you're brave enough to stay in that space, you'll find yourself changed. Because someone finally saw you and didn't flinch. Still, we're just scratching the surface of what makes them special. One of their most astonishing abilities is something we rarely acknowledge: their power to transform heaviness into hope. They take the energy that would crush others and mold it into wisdom. It's not that their lives are easier. Often it's the opposite. They face loss, pain, and betrayal just like anyone else, sometimes more. But they've developed a spiritual alchemy. Where most would crumble, they rebuild. Where most would retaliate, they reflect. They take the dust of disappointment and shape it into something that shines. This isn't fantasy. This is the strength that comes from choosing growth over bitterness, again and again. They don't see darkness as punishment. They see it as raw material. Each hardship becomes a doorway to deeper purpose. And when they rise, they carry with them the ability to help others do the same. Being near them in times of chaos is like finding a lighthouse in a storm. They don't offer false positivity. They offer perspective. They won't pretend the pain isn't real, but they'll show you that it's not the end. That the wound might just become the source of your power. And here's where it gets personal. If you've made it this far in the video, maybe it's because you've met someone like this, or maybe because you are someone like this. Either way, I want to pause and ask you something different. Not just to like, not just to subscribe, but to share. Share in the comments below. Have you ever been seen by someone in this way? Or have you ever felt that you were carrying something deeper, something others couldn't quite understand? Let's not just make this a video. Let's make this a space where people like you can be heard without having to prove their worth. Let us know if this message touched something inside you. Tell your story, even if it's a sentence, because maybe your story is the key someone else has been waiting for. And yes, if this kind of content resonates with you, if you want more insights that feed not just the mind, but the soul, subscribe to the channel. Not because it helps an algorithm, but because it connects you to a community of seekers, empaths, and soul travelers just like you. People who are not afraid of depth, who value the truth, even when it's quiet. And yet, perhaps the most misunderstood gift these individuals carry is not just spiritual strength, insight, or resilience, but access to a kind of wisdom that isn't written in books or taught in classrooms. These people are often silent vessels of ancient knowing, not because they claim to be sages or mystics, but because something within them remembers what most of the world has forgotten. It's not uncommon for them to say things that feel oddly familiar, as if your soul had heard it before, even if your mind hadn't. They speak to something timeless. Their knowledge isn't always packaged in polished speeches or long monologues. Sometimes it comes as a simple phrase, a glance, or a presence that shifts the atmosphere. They don't always understand where it comes from either, but they've learned not to ignore it. Over the years, they've come to recognize that when they follow that inner voice, when they trust the ancient echoes that live inside, they become bridges. Between the seen and unseen. Between confusion and clarity. Between what is and what could be. You may find them in unexpected places, not on stages or spotlights, but at the edge of a circle, quietly observing. They may be artists whose work evokes something sacred. They might be the neighbor who notices more than they let on, or the stranger who says just the right thing at the right time. Their wisdom is not always loud, but it is always precise. And when they speak, the room changes, not because of volume, but because of vibration. Ignoring such individuals isn't just overlooking a person. It's bypassing a portal, a moment that could have awakened something within you. They won't force their insight onto you. But if you ask, they will share. And what they offer isn't opinion. It's clarity. Rooted, not in ego, but in experience. They don't pretend to know everything, but what they do know, they've lived. And that kind of truth doesn't waver. What's more, being in their presence, even briefly, can shift your entire perspective. Not because they are trying to change you, but because they hold a mirror up to who you truly are. And if you're willing to look, what you see might surprise you. It might remind you of your own depth, your forgotten strength, or your dormant courage. That's the quiet miracle they offer. Not to save you, but to remind you that you were never broken to begin with. Still, we must acknowledge the tension that often arises around these individuals. Because in a world that thrives on predictability and hierarchy, someone who listens to their own rhythm disrupts the pattern. These people won't follow rules just for the sake of fitting in. They don't chase titles or recognition. They move according to inner alignment, not outer approval. And that threatens the status quo. That's why they are often misunderstood, labeled, or excluded. But here's the truth. The very thing that isolates them is what makes them invaluable. They are the ones who help shift paradigms, not through force, but through frequency. Their presence alone opens new doorways. Their lives challenge the rest of us to reconsider what matters, to slow down, to look deeper, to feel more honestly. They live with intentionality, and that is something many have forgotten how to do. And if you've ever found yourself drawn to someone like this, pay attention. That pull isn't random, it's recognition. On some level, your spirit knows. There's something in them that speaks to something in you. That's the invitation, to not just admire from a distance, but to awaken your own dormant gifts. These people don't want followers. They want mirrors, souls who are ready to rise together, not in competition, but in collaboration, not in ego, but in elevation. So as we close this journey, I want to speak directly to you. Whether you identify as one of these individuals, or you're just beginning to notice their presence in your life, know this: you're not here by accident. This video found you for a reason, maybe as a reminder, maybe as a seed, maybe as confirmation of something you've always known, but couldn't quite name. And now, I want to ask for something a little different. If anything in this message touched you, really touched you, take a moment to write something in the comments. It doesn't have to be long. You could share a sentence, a story, a thought. What did this awaken in you? Have you ever felt unseen, misunderstood, or strangely guided? Tell us. Tell me. Because this isn't just a monologue, it's a circle, a sacred space for reflection. And maybe your words are what someone else needs to hear to keep going. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. Not because it's what everyone says at the end of a video, but because you feel it. If you're still here, it means your heart is tuned to this frequency. So stay connected. Join this journey. Let's build a space where people who feel deeply, think deeply, and live with soul don't have to feel alone. You are welcome here. Your story matters. Your light is needed. We are not here to impress. We are here to awaken. And if this message has done that even a little, then its purpose is already being fulfilled.